What's up, everybody? Welcome to We Have Cool Friends. We're throwing you a curveball today. I'm your host, Nick Scarpino, and today I get the honor of interviewing the man himself, Mr. Greg Miller. How you doing, Greg?
I'm good, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. You seem low energy for a man that just turned 40.
Nope. No, I'm not that old yet, buddy. 37 today in
37.
A row. Right?
Happy birthday. Happy
Thank
birthday.
you very much.
Yeah, 37 years old. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, dude. Yeah, it's a good birthday so far. Jen made French toast with the sourdough bread and homemade whipped cream. So that was amazing. I had a party in Animal Crossing. I've been playing a video game for PS I Love You today. Pretty stoked. We've been playing Predator all weekend. We've been having a ball out there, Nick.
Oh my God, how good is Predator, honey?
Predator's so good. You're gonna come on PS I Love You and talk about that today as well. But
I am.
That's when you know a game is something special. When Nick Scarpino not only wants to play it, he's the one instigating it. He's the one asking me what time we're playing.
It's very rare, but that is 100% true. And I think the impetus of that is I like hearing Andy scream. It's just really fun for me if I can scare him a little bit. And he does the thing where he's super cocky and then flips it like real fast. Just go, oh shit, what's going on?
Yeah.
Of course, ladies and gentlemen, we do this show each and every week. And normally we get really, really great guests on it, and Greg interviews them. But now we've got an even better guest and a shittier host. I'm going to interview Greg about his upbringing, his time at IGN, his time at Kind of Funny, and where he wants to go in the future. Before we get to that, of course, this episode is brought to you by youtube.com/kindoffunny, the channel we're on right now. If you've liked anything we've done in the past, or you think we're going to do some cool shit in the future, please hit that subscribe button. We make lots of really fun content, not the least of which is this show. And also we are doing an in-review series where we are reviewing all of the Transformers movies, all of the VSQ movies, and eventually they're going to make me sit through those damn Hobbit movies. And I can't believe you got out of that one. I can't believe you got out of that.
Hey, I'm sorry. There's so many games to play. I got to go. I only have, there's only so much time in the day. I can't sit there and watch 6 hours of Elijah Wood traipsing around.
God, just walking around like
he wants an Academy Award. Should I put it on? Don't put it on. You know it's bad. But I
put it on. What happened? What happened when I put it on?
The bad guy sees me. Here we go. Fuck.
Can you see me?
Of
course. Shout out to our Patreon producers, Mohammed, Justin Toft, Das Bear Jew, Blackjack, and Downtown Jarrett Brown. You guys are all the ones keeping the lights on, and we very much appreciate that. Remember, if you guys want to support this show monetarily, you can go over to patreon.com/kindoffunny and back us at any tier, really. But if you want to be a part of the show, you can back us at the $5 tier or above, where you get to ask some fun questions of our guests every week for a section we have coming up called The Friend Zone. And a lot of you wrote in today, and I'm very excited about that. A lot of you wrote in about Greg's birthday, and I thought maybe we'd vary it up a little bit, but no, it's all about Greg's birthday, except for Sparagu, who says, why is KFAF the best show on the internet? And I just wanted to get that question a little early.
Glad you put that on the doc. Glad you put that on there. Glad that made the cut.
Greg.
Yeah.
This is
Do you want
me
to answer the question?
Oh, no. We'll get to that later.
Okay. So I didn't know if we were answering it now. Okay. My apologies.
You can mull it over for the next 45 minutes while we get into it.
Got it. Good. Okay.
While we get into it. This was a hard one because I started sitting down to try to figure out where I could fill in the blanks with you, because I know a lot about you.
You do.
And we've talked a lot about your upbringing.
Sure.
Of course, your grandmother and her just hatred of raccoons.
Yeah.
And I just kind of let's do a quick overview of where you're from.
Sure.
What brought you to the IGN point? Because I know you grew up in Chicago, in Glen Ellen.
Burbs. Yeah. Unincorporated Glen Ellen. Represent. No sidewalks.
Here's the first question right out of the gate. When did you know you loved Superman?
No, I mean that is bred inside of me. You know what I mean? I identified with Superman at a very young age, I think, to the point that I think, I joke around about it, but I do think that most of my decisions in life have been based on some love of Superman, right? Where you figure I always wanted the black rim glasses. I always wanted thick ass frame glasses. I told the story recently on the Kind of Funny podcast, right, where I wore the Back to the Future stupid flip shades out of a cereal box my grandfather gave me. I took off the shades part of them, had my dad file them down, and then I just had plastic glasses that looked like glasses that I didn't need. And I wanted to wear those forever, and I did, until that girl kicked them off my face on a bus, and then she freaked out when she found out they were fake.
Now, would it surprise you that we actually have her waiting on video right now?
That would be surprising, as I don't recall her name whatsoever.
That would have been amazing. Yeah.
Do you think about that? All the kids you came in contact with, or like went on summer, and like You don't remember these. There's hundreds of kids out there that lives intersected, but you have no way you'd ever track them down.
There was a guy I grew up with named Ben and a guy I grew up with named Ian. They were both in my neighborhood. We used to hang like crazy. I can't remember their last names. I can't remember anything about them. All I remember is that Ian was convinced that women got pregnant through the anus.
Sure.
And I was like,
that's all you understand. Yeah.
I was like, I don't think that's the way that goes. And he was like, no, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'm like, I am 11 years old and I have an older brother and I've already seen porn. I'm pretty sure they don't use that hole for that specific activity.
Well, you were way ahead of me. We didn't know that for a long time. No.
Well,
I think that too. Even the kids, like I went, like, and I know there's Facebook and shit, but I'll be damned if I'm gonna use Facebook. All right, but it's like, I went to school with kids in grade school and stuff, and I remember, like, I was thinking the other day, one of the chefs, we are in the same system, or San Francisco ecosystem for culinary stuff going on right now. His last name is one of the names of the kids I went to school with, and then I was like, wait, was one of those kids his first name too? And I was like, wait, is this chef from? And he wasn't, but it was that thing of like, I hadn't dusted off those memory files in forever to actually think about like what the fuck happened to those two random ass brothers that were bullies on the bus. Like, what the fuck?
The two brothers that were bullies on the bus.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I know. That's always the weirdest thing. Because I don't think I've connected with, the only people I keep in contact with from my youth are the people I went to junior high school, and then college with. Those are the ones that kind of stuck around. And then obviously I hang out with like guys like Stu and things like that were really tight friends in high school. But everyone else just sort of, you see them pop up on the Facebook every once in a while, and then they're just gonzo.
Do you do that? Are you following everybody on Facebook, like everybody from your previous life?
I did it first before I became a megastar. And then there was this little thing.
Cut them all loose.
Yeah, well, there was just this little thing in the back of my brain that I'm like, you guys are just a bunch of star fuckers, right? You just,
they're hanging.
You didn't care about me in high school.
Yeah.
Now you just want to be a part of the magic that's happening here at Kind of Funny.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's just bullshit. I can't remember. Did you end up going to your high school reunion or no? Did you do any of those?
No. Fuck no.
You gotta go, man.
No, I don't. No, I like the idea that I'm one of the people who made it. You know what I mean? There was a running there for a while where the four of us that were most likely to be a star, right? I was far and away the winner, like way out there in terms of that. And then one of the other ones got in a movie, like an independent movie. And it was that thing of like, oh, fuck, is she about to like blow up? Because she was great at, acting in high school and stuff like that. And then I saw that, like, I eventually Googled search her after I watched, I watched the movie, then years later, I'd never heard anything. I Googled her and she's like working at an insurance company. I'm like, aha, dream, you gave up on it. Not me out there, though. Still pounding the pavement, going to Comic-Con.
So that's a good question for you, though, because I wanted to sort of frame all this interview with you about like what motivates you. Okay. I'm always fascinated by people who are highly successful, who have reached sort of levels of success that I think are very, very hard to attain, and what pushes them forward. Sure. So like when you were young, was it just an assumption like, dude, I want to be a star. I want to be famous. I want people to know me. Or was that something that sort of evolved throughout the years?
I would say it evolved, but I would say that you've heard all my stupid stories before. And so as most people, right? Of me,
I mean, just pretend like I sometimes don't listen to you.
Sure, of course.
When you're talking.
I was going to be vague about it anyway. I remember, those days of being an only child and playing with my toys in my room and doing radio shows into the tape recorder, you know what I mean? Convincing my friends to come over and film on my parents' first camcorder. Eventually the, BYWF stuff, the backyard wrestling, all that jazz. Like, I never saw that as, and because it didn't exist, obviously, I never saw that as a career. But I distinctly remember having this feeling that I knew I wasn't going to be an actor. I knew I wasn't going to be famous, like, capital F, like, you can't walk down the street. You got to have the fucking bodyguards or something like that. I knew I wouldn't have that, but I knew I was going to have more than the average person in terms of reach, if that makes sense. And I feel like there's no way to talk about that and not sound conceited, but there was no real way to put it into words where I knew what I always say is I knew I wasn't going to have a desk job. You know what I mean? Like when you're a kid and you start formulating like, what are you going to do? And everybody dreams big and says astronaut or sports star. I think I said professional wrestling once, like when I was in second grade, and then in fourth grade, I switched over to video game journalism. But like even that, and even that, it's hard because that wasn't a normal job, obviously, but I knew it wouldn't be a desk job. But it was that thing of like, I just knew I wasn't going to be an accountant. I just knew I wasn't going to be striving for the corner office, that I would be like just a cog in a machine, if that makes sense.
It does. Was it the notoriety factor? Like, I mean, maybe
no, because I was talking about the fame is I never expected. And by the way, everybody, if you're just tuning in and you're like trying to figure out who the fuck we all are, we're not famous people. We're internet celebrities. All that and $2 to get you a cup of coffee. But clearly, you're watching us on the internet, so there's something more than just Joe Schmo. So like, that's what I always say though about getting the job at IGN is that the two things that blew my mind were the two things I didn't expect, and it was the fame and it was the travel, which was stupid on both accounts because I grew up idolizing EGM and idolizing Dan Shu. And so like reading that and reading, Crispin stuff and reading EGM, like it was this thing of they were celebrities to me, even though they didn't think of themselves that way. And but it was a different time where I wasn't going to go to a PAX and see them. I wasn't going to interact with them on the streets. And so also in the same way, when I read their report from TGS or what happened at E3, I was never thinking about, them tearing up their lives for a week and a half to go to Japan, them flying across from the suburbs of Chicago, where I was living in, a few suburbs away where EGM was, them flying from there to LA to live and work in LA for a straight week, right? And have these crazy hours and crazy parties like that. Those things didn't connect with me. So when I got to IGN and found that was the crazy part of it. And I'd like to think one of the reasons, I've been able to succeed, and then in Lou Kind of Funny has been able to succeed, right, is the idea that since that was never my goal, that's never been what's motivated any of our decisions. That's never made us, we always talk about like the realities of this is that we trade in authenticity, right? Like the only thing we're ever going to do when we turn on the cameras, the microphones is be ourselves and give our honest opinions and talk. And so that being at the core and not, man, I'm going to do this podcast until it gets big enough to sell it to Netflix, to get my own, movie, to get you into a comedy special, like,
man, I like this reality.
Of course. And like, that's the thing is like, we've been lucky enough. I've been lucky enough that stuff has all come naturally, but I think it's come naturally because we give off authentic, natural vibe. And that's, not the goal.
Right. So dialing it back, what gets you up in the morning? What motivates you in the morning to do the things that you do? Because I consider myself a fairly motivated person. And when I'm around normal people, they go, holy shit, you never stop doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like we'll put in the 8 to 9 hour day, and then I'll do something like a jujitsu class, and then maybe try to squeeze in a mic. But you make me look like I'm standing still more often than not. And I think a lot of people don't see it because a lot of people don't realize that you're always the first one in, last one out of the office. You're there at like 9 a.m. And you say it's because I'm distracting, but I don't think that. I think it's because there's something in your brain that says it's time to get up and it's time to do the work. And I don't know what motivates you. Like that's what I want to get. That's the nut I want to crack. I want to crack open that little head like it's a pistachio nut, and I want to lick the meat inside.
You're welcome to lick my meat anytime, Daddy.
There it is. What gets you up in the morning? What is it? Fear? Is it like, fuck, someone else is going to do this before I get to do it? Or is it just like, what is it?
I mean, I think it's all the above. You know what I mean? I think everything you just said is a reason. I think that, I remember distinctly walking through the door at IGN, right? And like getting set up and having, the different time, but having the PS2 there and the test PS2, having the PS3 there and the test PS3, having the the PSP I didn't need because I had my own PSP. I had a drawer full of PSPs at that point. Like,
remember when Nintendo used to make us bolt shit to tables?
Yeah, I do remember that. They'd come by, the Nintendo person would sit in the back while Craig Harris played some DS game nobody cared about, but it was like, had to be bolted to the desk, and then they would leave with it too, like it was in nuclear football.
God bless them.
Who would ever want to leak information about a video game? Come on.
Intentionally or not intentionally, we don't know.
Yeah, we will find out soon enough, though, I'm sure. We'll get to that. And P.S. I love you, I'm sure. So yeah, like I remember walking in and getting that desk, and like, it's always that weird thing of, I achieved my dream job, though, at 24. No, I would have been 23, and then I would have turned 24 in April. Mm-hmm. So at 23, right? And I remember walking in, and even though I'd only been at the newspaper a year and a half, and even though I loved the newspaper, I remember very much like 6 months in, and like having a conversation with somebody who was not in a bad way, but and again, this is part of the whole crunch burnout conversation you have and all that stuff. But I think I stayed late. I came in super early. I came into the office like 1 a.m. to cover the press conference in Japan that was announcing some Metal Gear stuff or whatever the hell it was. It was one of those kind of things, right? Where it was in the morning, I'm fucking wired. I can barely keep it together, but I went on 2 podcasts to talk about everything. And somebody saying something about it, not even snarky, but something about it. I was just like, hey man, like this is what I've always wanted to do. And I'll be damned if I'm going to lose the dream because I didn't work hard enough. And it was that thing of no matter what gets thrown at me here, at the end of the day, it is me reporting on something I love. And, that's developed, I think, obviously, and become more nuanced, where it is understanding the process of making a video game and how much work goes into it, and then getting the opportunity to talk about it. And now with like a plethora of different sources, podcasts and YouTube channels anybody can go to, right? Like, I understand how valuable everyone's time is, let alone their money, but that's a different conversation. It was this idea that every day doing this is a vacation compared to the newspaper, which wasn't grueling, don't get me wrong. It was at times, but it emotionally wore you down, right? Like I always talked about it of like, like never having to cover another funeral, never having to talk to another grieving widow of like an army vet, never have, like that kind of stuff. Like not having to do that, not having in a weird way, not that this was the biggest struggle, but like having to check your opinions at the door, right? Like I wasn't if you went and if I went and interviewed you, if you could time travel back and watch me work at the Tribune and go up and interview people, you're not getting the Greg Miller you get on a podcast who wheeze laughs, right? Or has very strong opinions about Kansas. Like I would sit there and I would take the notes and I would be, this unbiased journalist and do the thing. So to get out and go play at IGN like we were able to, and then now obviously what we do here, like that's a big part of it, is not taking it for granted that I get to do something. Not to mention that I get to do something I know how many dozens, if not hundreds of people who watch our stuff would kill to do for, right? Like it is a job and it is my career and it is all these things. And so it's this weird thing where it's all wrapped up together, because for as much as there's that, there's exactly what you're talking about, right? And this has been the struggle I feel like with, especially working from home now and having the thing interrupted and having to balance, being around the love of my life, Genevieve St. Ange, all the time, but then also want to be the Greg Miller video game guy, where even today, like Jen's finishing breakfast, but The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima just got new release dates, and I want to put out a tweet, but I'm fact checking, but she needs my help real quick. And it's like that thing of just like, stop, who cares? You're not going to be, first off, the PlayStation blog broke this news. Like, you're not breaking the news. It's not exclusive. No, go help your wife with whatever it is, and then come back and do the fucking tweet. Like,
So that leads me to a question that I have that is just sort of in the here and now. How do you see yourself? Do you still, because your DNA really is as a reporter, but what we do isn't that?
Yeah. I mean, nowadays, it's always a complicated question. If you were to ask me point blank out of the blue and I met you, I would say I was an internet personality. And if you wanted to dive into what the fuck does that mean, I would say that I'm a video game critic / pundit, because even critic, we don't review the same way. Like video game journalist, I never was. I was enthusiast press, right? Like I came with a journalism degree to IGN and did all these different things. But obviously even there, I moved into the host role and became something different and left reviews behind. And then to get where we are now at IG, or Kind of Funny after IGN, it is such a conversation of, you could ask me 12 different times with 12 different people and I would frame it a different way. Like, you know what I mean? The long and short of it is I get to be thousands of people's best friend. And that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like I always talked about when I wrote reviews, I would write them in the voice that I was on the couch in my basement in Chicago talking to Poe, when I would explain video games to Poe. And that worked for a lot of people, and it didn't work for a lot of people too. And it was a different time too, I think, for video game reviews, when we were moving off of the more, this game has this many levels, this game has this many maps, this is why this game is good or bad. Mm-hmm. And so nowadays we just do that in audio video form, right? And so it is this thing that I'm a video game personality, I'm an internet personality, and then you drill down into video game personality. I'm a video game expert, which I don't like, because clearly I'm not. Everyone who listens to this
but you kind of are, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I'm an expert in the way, like, you understand. I mean, you've existed long enough as a personality on the internet, right? That no matter what you think you know, and no matter how you want to represent yourself, there is someone who knows more than you, and they will crucify you at the drop of a hat for saying something wrong.
Sure.
And I feel that's been a big thing for me to get over, not in my career, I think mainly in Kind of Funny. Because at IGN, it was very much, I was in the PlayStation lane. I was doing the PlayStation beat. You know what I mean? And at that time, especially coming in at PS3's real ramp up, right? It was possible to know everything on the store, and it was possible to know everything. And it was, I'm on top of everything. And to move over to Kind of Funny and open it up more, like we couldn't do the shows we do and not have me be like, cool, Xbox is doing this stuff. I'm not an Xbox guy. I can't speak to that ecosystem. I don't know, but I can talk to you about top level trends and moves, right? That's what Games Daily is, of here's this bigger thing. But you'll see it all the time, where when you drill down into something, that's when I'm like, well, I've heard of this. I haven't played it. I haven't seen it. I saw this. I didn't read it. You know what I mean? Like, that's when you lose it a bit more. You can be the general pundit of it all. And like, it's so hard to talk about like, man, I'm not a great swimmer when you're in the deep end and you've been doing laps and treading water forever, right? Because I think it is that I'll never forget, a couple years ago, actually might have been a year ago, like right around here, where Jen and I went home and we needed something, or Jen needed something. So we went to Walmart and dad and I wandered through video games. And it was that thing of him asking questions that are, of course, what the mainstream would think. I don't play video games. What about this? What about that? And me sitting there and, fucking having a sermon for 10 minutes at a time about this, that, and the other. And you're like, oh yeah, I guess I do have a very comprehensive knowledge of this industry that I cover. But it is that thing then to, compare what my take on an Xbox Direct would be to like Xbox and Me with MC Fixer, right? Or to talk about PC gaming and to compare that to what Dan Stapleton, like, you know what I mean? I can talk about the trends and the developers and the talent, but then
but do you still feel like I would still feel like you're a fairly high level voice when it comes to PlayStation.
Oh no, yeah. So I'm not taking away from PlayStation. No. I still think that I'm in the conversation there when people talk about like PlayStation personalities they know or trust or whatever the hell you want to say, but are knowledgeable, right? I think there's people who outclass me for sure, but I think it's also that comes down to what are you doing and how are you doing it, right? Like I think it would be a different ball of wax if Kind of Funny was we left IGN and we just did PlayStation, right? Then I'd be a different person. But it's the fact that we left and now we are doing a channel that is not games, a channel that is games and not just PlayStation. You know what I mean? Like that's where it all happens. And that's why it was cool to come back to PS I Love You and start doing this 104 PSN games ranked, because it is such a callback, I feel, to when I first started. And it was like, I know it's on the store every week because I read about it and I talk about it and then I have to decide what I'm playing. And then I have an opinion about a weird ass game you wouldn't normally play.
Do you feel like it's weird to jump between those two worlds though? Because that's one of the things
that Kind of Funny games.
Yeah, like because those two channels are now our two channels have sort of diverged fairly. I wouldn't say far apart from each other, but we're not necessarily running in parallel lanes anymore. We're sort of I feel like Kind of Funny is a little bit more. It's very much movies focused. It's not in the realm of reporting or any sort of like critical feedback. Where we have screencasts, but it's mostly kind of top level what's been happening and how that affects our lives as far as how much we love Marvel movies. Whereas you guys are really aiming more toward the editorial news side on games. And how do you rectify those two?
I mean, for me, it's the dream come true. I mean, that's the reason we have two channels, right? Like I remember that being such a conversation with us when we were getting ready to leave of, do we make a second channel? Do we make a second Patreon? Why would you do that? And I think when it was the four of us, the four co-founders, that was a harder argument when we were making this idea, though, this argument that, well, there's a lot of road in front of us. Like this isn't, you're thinking short term, you're thinking the first 6 months. Let's think about the next 6 years and then the next, hopefully 12. Like that was the goal of doing this, is to give everybody room to grow and make stuff that they could do that isn't necessarily what we already were doing. And I don't think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think when we started kind of funny, and we're doing that. And once we started Kind of Funny games and there had to be an identity, I don't think we ever thought of Kind of Funny as being like, it was going to emulate what was happening on the game side. It was going to be like, mainly it was going to be the Game Over Greggy show, right? It was just going to be us all fucking around and doing whatever.
Balls.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's honestly more impressive that still happens, obviously, but the way we've bucketed everything, the way we figure things out, since Kind of Funny 4.0, right? In 2019. Having screencast, having in review, having this show, We Have Cool Friends, where I was like, I miss interviewing people, getting that back and being able to do that. Like that's powerful. And I love the fact when I look at the calendar or even when I look at the page, when I go to Kind of Funny, youtube.com/Kind of Funny, which you should subscribe to, even though games I think has less subs, I don't mind. When I go there, right, and I look at the uploads or I look at the things and I'm like, fuck, I haven't been on a Kind of Funny video in a couple days. You know what I mean? Like that's awesome. I fucking love that, because that was the concern when we left, right? It was that idea of like, you and Tim had still been behind the camera, and so granted we've been doing Game Over Greggy shit for like what, a year and a half, 2 years to that point, but it wasn't, you weren't it
was more of a vehicle for you and Call.
Yeah, exactly. And so like that was always the concern of like, all right, cool, Colin and I are coming and we have an audience and we have this stuff, but how
like I remember those times where it was like just the two of you in the room for all day.
Mhm.
You know, you guys would do that. You do PS I Love You, and that was like it would be me out there just administratively working. Kevin,
Yeah.
poor Kevin, just running around both back and forth, squeezing between the that small little bit of room we had between the door and the camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but dialing it back before we get too far, because I have a lot
Yeah,
of
sure.
questions about sort of where we're at right now and where we're
You're
going.
killing, by the way. This is fun.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying to fill in some of the blanks for like your upbringing and kind of
Sure.
what gave you the confidence to be who you are right now. There's a big thing I have that I don't feel like I ever had, even though I always had the support of people who I thought were adults. But I think for me, because I always was just such an even keel kind of happy-go-lucky kid, I always think that people looked at me and said, "Oh, he's got his shit together. He'll figure this stuff out." But I think I when I look at people who are high level performers, they always have someone in their life that was like, "Hey, you're special. You can do this." Did you have a person like that in your life? Did anyone ever tell you you can be a reporter? You can do the
Oh
thing you
yeah.
want to do?
Oh my God, for sure. I mean, like, I would say both my parents for sure. Like that was the thing. And I would say with all due respect to both parents, mom number one, because like
Mhm.
mom was the primary caregiver. And that's not to take away from dad, but it was that thing for sure. Like, I remember when I was growing up and being a kid at home, it was that mom stayed with me during the day. When dad came home, she would go to work. And so, when you're a kid, that meant I was with mom from what, like 6 a.m. till
Oh yeah.
5:30, and then dad
Well,
until I went to bed at 8:30. So it wasn't
yeah,
like he was
we're
pulling.
definitely that generation that was raised by our mothers.
Yeah,
I remember seeing
exactly.
my dad for approximately an hour and a half at night, and he would come
Totally.
home in the suit, eat dinner, go upstairs, and work. That was it.
Yeah. And I remember being a small kid and like in the grant, and I don't can't speak to everybody's childhood, so maybe this is something that's common for everybody. But I remember being a small kid and being more like scared of my dad. I love my dad, but like, it was that thing of like I knew mom so well. I was with mom
Mhm.
all the time, right? Of like, wait, how does that shake out the other way around? Like, don't get me wrong, that is not something that persisted anywhere well into my upbringing. I don't even want to get put a year because it would have been so early. But I remember being a very young child and having that kind of like, okay, I don't see dad as much kind of thing. But no, like, I was, for me, it's always that story that I know is tired and old for everybody. But when I decided I wanted to do games journalism, I walked into the kitchen and told mom in fourth grade that I found what I wanted to do with my life. Right. Every time I tell that story, because I think at this point I'm a pretty good storyteller, sometimes I tell that story, especially to somebody new. I let it hang, right? And I do the like. I walked into the kitchen and I told my mom I know what I want to do with my life, and I showed her the video game magazine. And I always let it hang there because most of the time I get to chuckle from the people thinking my mom's about to shoot me down.
Mhm.
When in reality, my mom turns around, looks at the magazine, okay, we can make that happen. Like, how do we make that happen? So, he's that they're writers, so you probably need to start writing, and that's journal. It's a magazine, so you should look into being a journalist. And like, you look at all that, which then lines up to your original question of like, I loved Superman, I loved Clark Kent, he worked at the Daily Planet. Like, sure, I'll do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I feel that push was there, and it was the fact that my parents made it very clear from a young age that yeah, anything you wanted to do, you could do. Like, you know what I mean? That is, it's so hard to identify, and I guess this is very offensive, seeing as how we've never grown up anywhere else. But I feel is one of the such core values of being an American, right? Of like, you can do whatever you want if you put your mind to it. Back to the Future style, you can make it happen. And so,
Yeah, I don't think that's insulting at all. I mean, I think that is the promise of the American dream, right? And that's
right,
why so many people want to come live here. I think, and that's why that there is such a heated debate about that, because it's almost written into the Constitution that this is the place you come to, like, where you can make your dreams come
make it
true.
happen.
It's
Yeah,
not written into the Constitution, but that is the concept of that's what gives me pride to be an American. All kidding
sure,
aside, is
yeah,
that I do feel like this is a great place you to come to and do whatever you want to do in life, relatively unencumbered by the system,
yeah.
which
Well,
depending
we'll
on
get to that another
depending
time.
on when
We'll
you're
get to that
watching this
another time.
interview. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
I don't think I've ever asked you this, and if you don't want to answer, don't
I'm an open
please
book.
prefer not to. But at what age were you when your folks broke up?
Oh, it was my freshman year of college. So like
Okay, so
it
that was
was
right out of
literally
uni.
like mom held on long enough to get me out of the house.
Okay.
And it was, I think that speaks to both of my parents, in terms of this, where it's like, especially now being an adult, right? Like, I, as a child, never wanted for anything. And I don't think I was spoiled. And I think they would back me up in that too, in terms of like being spoiled rotten, right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't like, I want this new thing. And like the next day I had it every time. I was telling a Spider-Man story about my dad, but that was a different story. Like, it was that, I did have to do chores or I did have to do this, and I got punished all the time if I fucked up and yada, yada, yada. But it was that thing of being an adult now and looking back of, like, my parents made the choice to put me into private school from what, kindergarten through when I went to college, right? And like, they paid obviously for all that. Like, you know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
I remember those bills and they weren't small and even now, like, you know what I mean? Not having a great concept. I'm not like asking my parents what they're making or bringing down or whatever, but I know that like they would have liked to put that money somewhere else. I'm sure, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that it would have, you know, they could have, if I would have gone to public school, and it wasn't my choice, obviously. Well, I'm sure at some point I was asked, but what the fuck do I know as a kid? You know what I mean? Like if I would have gone to public school, it would have been a different story. And in high school, there was that choice of if I was going to go to Glenbard West or St. Francis, and I went to St. Francis, and there was some lineage there of like my mom had gone there and really liked it and stuff like that. But even college too, you know what I mean? Like my parents paid for my college. Like I don't have debt, you know what I mean? And again, I don't think it's not that my parents were like, oh, check, done. This is easy. I think it was like, all right, cool. We're not going to do X, Y, and Z. So Greg can go to high school, college, all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't easy street for them. I don't think in any stretch of the imagination. I think sacrifices were made to make that happen, but it was the idea that I knew what I wanted to do. And I think that's what it made it make sense to them, right? Because again, 4th grade video game journalism. Okay, cool. What does that look like? It looks like the school papers. It looks like, you know, I'm going to go to Francis where they have the school paper. I'm going to take over that basically my freshman year. I want to, you know, go from there. Where's the best place to go for journalism? It's Mizzou. And like, they saw what I was doing. They saw that I had a plan in my head for how to do it.
So you didn't just spring the fact that you wanted to be a film major on your parents midway through sophomore year of college?
No. I sprung on them that I needed to move to San Francisco. That was it.
Oh, that was a big one. Okay. Yeah. Imagine your mother's dread when you were a computer science major at the top 5 school for computer science. And you were like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be a film studies major. My mom was like, well, literally her tone shifted with me. And she was like, I told you I'd pay for 4 years. That's it. And then she got up. I was like, okay, well, I guess me and dad are having the rest of this dinner. Just not to get too personal, but did it come as a shock when your folks told you they were splitting up, or was that like a okay thing? I think
no, it wasn't a shock for me. I mean, is it okay? Like, yes, it was okay. Long story short, there, yeah, but it wasn't like okay, cool, no problem. It was like, oh, that sucks, but I want you to be happy. That was the biggest thing. Is like, you know, I don't think my parents ever hated each other or anything like that, but you saw them, you know, rubbing up against each other, right? We're like, oh, you're annoying me, and it was like, well, I can see that, and it's like, I think as a kid into an adult, obviously into a teenager, right? You saw the scale shift a bit where it wasn't as much like, okay, sure. I mean, you annoy your wife, right? I annoy my wife. That happens. But like, you also know that then there's this other side of it where no, it's great. And you guys do really love each other. And so I think it was just the same thing you see a million times, right? Of just this slow separation, people changing, everything else. You know what I mean? And so like, I saw that coming, and I remember having conversations with them about that. And like, you know, but it was that idea. I think that both of them wanted to see me through, wanted to see me, you know, get out of the house and go to college and do these different things. And so I think that was pretty much the finish line to then like, and again, another thing I think you see so many times with parents who split up, right? Where it is that final kid's out of the house, and now let's actually have you know, we don't have this objective anymore. Like the kid is done. He or she is out. They are living a life now. So now we can actually once again focus on ourselves, which I know is so hard because I know it's the same way where like, we talk in absolutes, I think, as human beings, right? And it is that idea of like, you know, obviously, as everyone's pretty much aware of, I think, like, you know, Jen and I, our marriage came on fast, right? And we were madly in love and all this different stuff. And it was these conversations of, well, sure, yeah, you know, blah, blah, blah. And like, you know, if we get together and it does change, it doesn't work out, blah, blah, blah. We can get divorced. We'll figure it out. We're good people and, you know, blah, 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 blah. But it was this idea of in my own head of like, well, once we have kids, though, that's done. Like I'm committed and we're committed. And it's like, as I say that, like, I'm like, wait, what the fuck? I'm saying the same thing I just saw my parents do, but me also say to them, like, you don't have to do this. You know, it's like, it's such a weird yoke to wear on top of on top of everybody, I guess, in terms of.
I feel like that's necessary. That's like one of the real reasons why I just don't feel comfortable having kids. It's such a big commitment. And I do think that I'm kind of the kind of person that's like, once I'm in on something, I'm all in. Like I very seldom commit, but you've even seen it. And this is going to sound silly and trite, but even with like predator hunting grounds, where the second I dedicate myself to it, I'm like, I have to level up and get the combi stick. I have to be, when we do these streams, I want to be not the weakest link of this team. I want to own Al Tribesman's ass.
We're gonna fucking fuck up Al Tribesman on Twitch tomorrow, but you better come over.
We're coming for you, bro. We're coming for you and your London ass.
No, and I hear you, but I also think it's part of too just, and I understand that this is not going to go away anytime soon, but it's also, I think, it's the expectations of your generation and what you envision parenting to be and what you envision a family to be, right? And I do think that as we've seen the nuclear family, right, fade away, as we've seen more co-parenting situations, as we've seen children split between families or whatever, and that sounds horrible, but you understand what I'm saying, like a mom and dad who aren't living together and aren't married and aren't doing whatever. I do see them working. It's the same. Well, this is a dark one, I guess, but it's the same way I always talk about like I forget what reference I brought this up when we were talking about something on a podcast recently, but it was like, if a dog wakes up and they amputated its leg, the dog doesn't sit there and go, oh man, where's my fucking leg? The dog's like, I got 3 legs now. This is life, and moves on. Right. I see kids do that all the time, where these kids who are in co-parenting situations, or mom and dad have broken up, they're not devastated by it. They're like, oh, this is what life is. And I'm talking about, the young kids or whatever. And I think I remember, I don't know if this is how it was for you or how it was on this coast or whatever, but like, I remember distinctly, and granted she was a friend, but in grade school, junior high or whatever, the one girl whose parents were divorced. And it was like that thing of like, oh my God, Colleen's parents are divorced. That's weird. What's that like? And like, now it's not like that at all. I feel like so many kids' parents are divorced or just not together.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had friends. I had a good amount of friends whose parents were either divorced or got a divorce all throughout high school. And I just feel like I always felt like the conversation was a lot more open as we got older and as we got into the 90s. And I think a lot of movies started to be about that. And a lot of pop culture started to be about that. Because in the 80s, it very much was, your parents stay together for the kid. Yeah. Right. And then in the 90s, it was like there was the question of, or the debate as to like, are you doing more good than damage by staying together for the kid? Yeah. Or in my parents' case, my parents went through a lot of rough patches, as every parents do. And there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of arguing in the house. There was a lot of things thrown and mitigated rage. And I see a lot of that in myself as I've grown up, and I've had to deal with a lot of that in my adult life, because I'm like, I don't want my wife to be in this situation. And if we ever did have another life form in here, I don't want to take it out on that thing, whether it be a dog, a kid, a foster kid, or whatever. So I do feel like that was a little bit more open. But I remember my friend Ryan's parents were divorced, and I was just always so like fascinated by his life, because his dad lived like a lawyer. He lived in this baller house. I never met his mom, never even met his mom once. Yeah. And he just kind of came and went as he pleased. And like, that's so weird to me. Well, it's weird to me in general, people that don't have like siblings, because I grew up with a brother that I always felt I was always chasing after. Sure. Do you feel like as an only child that gave you a sense of independence, or do you feel like that hampered your creativity?
Oh no, it definitely, I mean, creativity wise, no, I think it was, marvelous for me. Cause again, it was like, for creativity, like, this is a joke. Well, it sounds funny. We've made jokes about it before, but like, I played with action figures far too long, right? Like, I'm talking about like in freshman year of high school, I was still buying mint on card toys and like buying 2, that one I could open and fuck around with, and one I could put in my.
Wait, you're saying you stopped buying those freshman year of high school?
Well, I don't play with them anymore. All right, there's a difference between what I put on my desk. You freaking psycho.
That's fair.
But it was this idea that I was playing with them, but I was basically creating stories, right? I'm doing narrative. It was influencing the comics I was drawing. It was influencing the stuff we were making with the camcorder. Like, it was this idea
that influenced the paper that you started too. What was the name of that thing?
Greg's Gazette. Yeah, of course.
That's right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, almost got me thrown out of school. Stupid ass. Fucking. This is why don't get me started. But it was this idea of like, creativity. I was always bursting with creativity, right? And it was that thing of, again, not knowing where that would take me, but doing stuff with it, right? Because like, we talk so much about like the journalism and video games and all that stuff, but like, I think my 8th grade yearbook says, underneath your senior portrait or every 8th grade portrait, it's like, what you wanted to do, and mine says they had to shorten it, so it's journalist / cartoonist instead of video journalist cartoonist, because I was the kid who drew all the time, and I was the kid who drew comic strips. I did comic books for a while and then started just doing comic strips. And not only did I do the comic strips, then I got like super obsessed with it and trying to get them published, and like eventually never got published, but got written up in like the Chicago Sun-Times and Daily Herald, and then the local news and stuff like that, where it was this thing of, not only was I making all this stuff, not only was I doodling all this stuff, then I had this not I wouldn't say it would. It's similar to this, I guess, right? Where it wasn't this instinct to make money, but it was this instinct to share. To where I was then,
That's yeah.
I was
See,
then
that
selling the
is the
books
thing.
collected.
Sorry, I finished that
No,
sentence because I
no,
interrupted.
I was going through and I would take all my sketchbooks and cartoons and stuff, and then I would go and put them into, basically when I had to do those reports and those
Mhm,
plastic spines and the plastic covers, right?
mhm.
I would buy my obviously parents would help me. I would go buy those in bulk. I would then go everywhere I could to get free copies, and I would go photocopy all my cartoons, and then I would go and put them together, and then I would sell them for like $5 to kids. Like I would just sell these giant, like 60 pages of cartoons.
This is, I guess, this is the thing that I think is the trickiest for me to nail down to myself, which is that like I don't have that inherent need to share.
Mm,
And I think you and Tim do. And I don't know if that's something that's just inherent in one's DNA, if it's a condition of upbringing, or if it's just some people have it or some people don't. Like it might surprise people, obviously, because when I'm cameras on, I like to be a dumb goofball. But
no,
when I write something or when I do something, it's very difficult for me to like the first instinct for me is to put it aside and be like, oh, that's not good enough. No one's going to care about that.
mm.
And I'm always fascinated by you don't have that moment of self-doubt in between doing the thing and putting the thing out. And
Sure.
I don't know where that comes from. Like, did you
It might.
ever doubt yourself, or was it ever
Oh my god, of course. I mean, like it's impossible not to doubt yourself, right? And I think that like, whenever somebody wants to write in and ask me for advice, I usually can't do it, so I give them a form letter saying I can't talk to you. But when it's a podcast or it is a tweet or it is a whatever, right? Like, fake it till you make it is real, and I think that's the biggest part of it. And so, like,
but that's different though, because like I've seen people who quote unquote fake it till they make it. But
yeah,
there's a difference between me going like I'm gonna fake self-confidence, and then on the podcast about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I told you I was reading Stephen King's On Writing, which is a
yeah,
half biography, half sort of just the techniques of writing. And I'm not kidding when I say like a lot of the stuff you just said is mirrored in his creative process. Is that when he was a kid, he just felt like he had all these stories to get out, and he wrote, and he was the kind of guy that had a nail on his wall with all the rejection letters on it, and
yeah.
he'd get another rejection letter and he would just put it up there like a badge of honor. And to
I
me,
have all those. Yeah,
that would be soul crushing. I would, after the first, like I'll never forget, I made a short film, my very first short film. I submitted it to one film festival. It got rejected. I was like, I'm never doing this again. I didn't
yeah,
submit it to another film festival because I just don't have that thing in me that goes, those guys are wrong. I'm right.
sure.
I'm like, they're the authority. They said this sucks. Clearly it's not worth my time or money to put in anything else. I'll just move on to the next thing.
Well, I think part of it, right, for me was the idea that, and this is, I think, why it's so wonderful to be a kid trying to create stuff now, was I didn't have to worry about gatekeepers the way I was doing it, right? I was drawing all these comics. I was making these videotapes for my friends or whatever. The other thing I did is that, and this is, I have some of them, and if you have a cassette player, we should listen to them at some point. But I would
I can hear
chronicle
Kevin writing a note right now. Get cassette player.
I would chronicle, right, like sleepovers and class trips on a tape recorder, and like and it was basically like an audio diary, but it wasn't just my perspective. It would be me interviewing people, like what had just happened, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And then I would sell those tapes to people. You know what I mean? I would like, oh, I was literally like, do you want to commemorate the 5th grade class trip? Like, I have this thing I did. Like, you might not even be on it, but maybe you get mentioned or whatever.
That's
And it was
amazing.
like such a weird thing, but like, I think
It's like you were trying to make your shit go viral before that was even a thing.
totally. No, I mean, like, and I always say this, like, thank God that, like we were all too stupid and internet technology wasn't there for us to upload our wrestling, because we would have uploaded BYWF for sure. We would have uploaded it unedited, not even worrying about the fact that all of our storylines involved people from the school that like they didn't consent to be in any of this, and like not all were positive. And like you're also a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, I guess at some point, but like you're a kid, you know what I mean? We think about all the things we were lucky enough to learn and not have chronicled on Facebook and not have chronicled on YouTube, right?
Oh,
That's
I'm
like
sure there's quite a few choice expletives that are in there that we
oh my
don't we
god,
don't say
100%.
anymore.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's part of growing up, right?
I
And
still hold to the fact that one of these days I'm going to convince Tim to make it a Patreon goal. The next time we do a big Patreon push to
yeah,
put out a limited series of your backyard wrestling. We'll go in, we'll edit out all the stuff that we don't need. We can bleep it out with obvious ADR,
yeah,
but like have Cool G go in and actually put together a little mini, like maybe like 4 to 6 episodes season with a story arc
sure,
of the backyard wrestling.
sure,
And I
sure,
just
sure.
think it would be, I'll do dope ass graphics for it. And then we can figure out a way. I'm just saying, I think it'd be really fun if you got those tapes.
Yeah, I have the tapes. That's not the problem. It's just the desire to see any of that stuff get out there or whatever and do it again. Not that I'm at all embarrassed by it, but more just like the fact that like, oh God, like what are we even talking about? You know what I mean? Like I don't even want to think about it in the 24 hours of footage we have, what fucking shit we say and who we're fucking insulting for no
this
reason.
is what we have Cool Greg for, right? Although I don't know if that Cool Greg is necessarily the best litness for what is and is not acceptable on the internet.
Yeah. I'm talking about this. They use this woman's full name that they went to school with and say horrible things. Not put it up.
That's hilarious. But that's what I'm saying. Oh, here's my pitch for you. We just bleep out her name and put it in the name of someone that we know that is cool.
Gio Harris. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Gio Tap Harris.
So yeah, like I think it's interesting. I would say part of it would have been like I'm not crediting or blaming or anything like that, but I didn't have an audience. That was the thing, right? Like it's that thing where, I remember, you tell your parents about what you're doing, you show your cartoons to them, but they're not into it the same way, right? That you are. Or even comic books where, I was talking about like, we'd get the Wizard World Chicago, and even when it was the Chicago Comic-Con before then, 3-day passes, and I would go to every booth and scroll through and go through every long box looking at comics. And Dad would walk behind me for those entire 5 hours, not, occasionally looking at something, but he didn't like comics. He just likes collecting. So he likes his son being into something. And so I think the urge to perform, but more importantly, like you're talking about share, right, came from, not having that outlet. You talk about having Matt, right? Having a brother there who, whether he wants to or not, is going to hear your ideas or see this thing and do whatever. I remember like, drawing a cartoon or playing a game. Like I remember, it's so funny where we are now with like Let's Plays, right? And Twitch and everything else. Cause I remember distinctly playing video games on the Genesis and sitting there and like doing not shoutcasting like it is today. Obviously nobody knew what that was going to be, but more like Golf Channel, where it would be like, I'd be doing something like, oh man, like in your head, you're like, oh, it's gonna be tough for Greg to pull off this jump. And it's a jump I've done a million times, right? You're doing that like glory moment I'm sure kids have when they're playing baseball and hitting T-balls or whatever, but I'm doing it with gaming, right? Where I was like, I did it. Oh my, you know what I mean? The crowd goes wild kind of stuff. Like I remember all of that to such an extent, again, not knowing where that would go. And I think it's just, I'm incredibly lucky that all of this grew with me in terms of the technology and the power and the ease of sharing all this stuff.
Yeah, because it's weird to me because obviously I always need sort of a blueprint for success, and I'm always envious of people that don't need that or feel like what other people have done is, hey, screw that. I want to do my own thing. I want to do something different, or at least evolve what someone else has done. But I remember distinctly when we started doing stuff for YouTube, I remember the light bulb moment for you of being like, oh, dude, we should have our own YouTube channel. And at that point, I was like, that just seems like a waste of time, man. We're already working for IGN. Like we already got the salaries and stuff. And then when we started doing like Conversation with Colin, Oreo Oration, those things, there was maybe a 6-month period in there where I'm like, I'm just helping out a friend and getting like good pizza. And this is just it's a fun, almost not a fuck you to Fran, but just sort of like this is the one aspect of my life that Fran can't touch or influence. Yeah. But I think for you, it was always like, this is a foregone conclusion. This is going to be the thing. This is the thing I'm doing now.
Yeah, I thought it could help. That was the biggest thing. And again, I didn't know what that was. And that was always the argument when I went to all the heads of IGN and had to pitch this and what I wanted to do, right? And it was always that conversation. It worked until the final lawyer, where I would say, like, I just don't understand why you're not all about this. Like, what the worst case scenario is that, and this is obvious. Well, no, I mean, she's still super popular, but this is like at her zenith, right? I'm like, the worst possible situation is that I become the next Felicia Day, and the next Felicia Day works at IGN. And they'd all be like, oh, it's a great one. And then when I got to the final, the big lawyer for IGN at the time, and I said that, he goes, no, the worst case scenario is you become the next Felicia Day and go work at Machinima. And I was like, oh yeah, I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah, little did he know. See, again, not having the foresight. The worst case scenario is you become the next Felicia Day and then do your own thing.
You understand the power. I think, you know what I mean. I guess like that's part of it. Yeah. Like I didn't understand that and I still don't. You know what I mean? Like I think a question that haunts me that I fucked up in an interview, right, was on We Have Cool Friends. And it was when I was interviewing one Blessing Adeoye Jr. And this is before we hired him. It was back when he was doing his Up and Comer week. And I said, well, what questions do you have for me? And we kind of turned the tables. And he said to me, what is it like being Greg Miller? And I forget what I said because I've never thought of that question. And what I should have said is, wait, what do you think? Who do you think Greg Miller is? Right? Because that's the biggest thing. You talk when you were mentioning earlier, like success and like, oh, well, you're one of the voices for PlayStation or one, whatever. You're one of the voices when you think of like what we do or video game people, I guess. Like if you're into this part of the video game world, like you think of me, right? I guess. But do you? I don't know. Like I always feel like we're the underdog. I always feel like we're not. I don't know, Jeff Keighley. We're not Easy Allies. We're not IGA. We're not this. And like, don't get me wrong, that's great, and I love that. And I think, like I've said so many times, there isn't competition. There's just collaboration. And I'm not saying I want to go after those people, but I don't think we've made it. You know what I mean? But then I say that.
But that's a question that is a question I literally wrote down. Do you feel like you've made it?
No, I mean, like we're killing it. We're crushing it. We're doing awesome stuff here. But like, the plan with Kind of Funny has always been right to grow it and grow it smartly and not just blow up overnight and not do all stuff. But I've always said, like, I don't want another job after this. I don't want another business after this. I want this to be the retirement plan. I want to go all the way with this. But what that means is that, sorry, there's a helicopter passing. What that means, of course, is that, today on my 37th birthday,
like, do you feel like you made it? Sorry, that's my helicopter landing on the roof.
Yeah, I gotta go, guys. Sorry. But on my 37th birthday today, it's not me saying that when we look ahead 23 years and it's my 60th birthday, I'm still hosting 4 shows a day or a week or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Like, the way this works is that we bring in the right people. They grow with us. A lot of them leave. A lot of them stay. We keep bringing in fresh voices and personalities and this, that, and the other. And like, we have something that goes on forever, right? Like that isn't just on our shoulders. Yeah.
But will that be good enough?
I mean, it's good enough now.
Well, yeah. But my question is, do you have a need to feel like you've made it? Do you have a need to feel like you've broken that upper echelon of influencers into fame?
No, I don't have that. My need is to make sure we are able to pay Barrett. You know what I mean? I don't want to. My fear, right? Like earlier, what drives you now to get out of bed? Same stuff. Every day is a vacation. This is amazing. I get to talk about the things I love. I know how hard people worked. I get to be the conduit between these incredibly talented developers who are making something. And back to my Game Awards speech, that don't get the recognition they deserve. I get to champion their things and tell you why they're great and show you these stories and do all this different stuff. But as Kind of Funny has evolved and grown, there is that big part of it, right? Of like, I want to make sure that we never lose somebody for a dumb reason. Mm-hmm. When Andy, Barrett, and Joey, anybody, when they come to us and they're like, hey, site X, whatever, job X offered me this amazing thing and I got to do it because I'm passionate about it and I'm thrilled about it. I want to go off and spin off and do my own thing. We're going to be so happy for them and we're going to be totally down. I never, ever, ever, ever want it to be, hey, the cost of living is not keeping up and I can't do that. And like, can you guys give me a 3% raise, 4%, whatever it is? And us go, no, we can't. You know what I mean? And there's a difference between, no, we can't. We don't think. No, but this is how much we pay for the position. We can talk about negotiating a new position for you, yada, yada. That a whole different ball of wax. I just don't ever want it to be like, no, man, we're like, I'm fucking Tobey Maguire holding the fucking train together as Spider-Man, right? Like,
no. I mean, I totally understand that. I get where you're at because to me, that's a big motivator for me, right? Fear is obviously a huge motivator for me. I think as it is for everyone. My fear is that I will do something or I will my biggest fear for when I wake up in the morning is that I don't put it all in and then something that I didn't do will tear the company down. Will just break down the whole company, right? Yeah. And it's stupid because there's not one thing that I'm responsible for or any of us are responsible that could potentially have that. But I'm right there with you, right? Like I don't, if like one day Joey decides to leave, I want that to be because she has found this amazing opportunity that we can then go and be proud of her for and help her get over there. I don't want her to leave because I forgot to pay a bill that then got us in hot water with the government that then we started losing revenue and all this. And to me, I have these nightmares, these just these fevered moments where I'll wake up in the middle of the night and be like, did I do payroll? Did I do this? Did I pay the taxes? Because I don't for me, it's a matter of trying to perform at the highest level to keep up with you guys to make sure that we're all pushing this thing forward.
Yeah. And that you see that, and that's all wrapped up in this thing we're talking about, right? Of to think of, I'm a video game expert, but I'm not, blah, blah, blah. And it's framing myself correctly and doing everything and responding everything the right way is so important because I don't want it to be that if I there's a simple fucking question that I get asked and I fuck it up, for sure that does lead to at least one person, but a percentage point of somebody turning off a podcast and be like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Right. I remember in the first couple of the relaunched PS I Love You episodes, we were so far in talking about PlayStation 4 and talking about PlayStation 5 that then I got a question about if backwards compatibility on PS3 extended, and I was just like, I fucked it up, and I had to look it up, and I was like, God damn it. You know what I mean? Like Greg Miller 2008, 2009 wouldn't have fucked that up. And it's just
slapped you across the face.
Granted, I have, 12 more years of fucking garbage shoved in here about video games that I haven't thought about the fucking launch unit of the PlayStation 4 and the 3 and the silver fucking thing in forever. But it was like, shit, I fucking look stupid for that. And that's where you're talking about, like, me first in, last out, which isn't always true, but because I'm not trying to take away from anybody, but in terms of going home and playing more, reading more, doing something more, like always working, right? I feel like that's part of it, is that, especially for being the face of it, like I don't want to be out there and be considered a moron. You know what I mean? And that's always such a hard line for us to walk, right? Yeah, exactly. That's such a hard line for us to walk, because I know that, like, I go to Reset Era, I go to Discord, I go to these things, and I see how people talk about me. And it is that thing of like, I read it and I'm like, well, you're not wrong. I have presented myself that way. And it is such an interesting special sauce to what makes Kind of Funny work, and what makes us all, what makes us all gel, and what makes the audience gel with us, and what makes a Kind of Funny best friend come here and be so dedicated to us, is that balance of, I can sit there and I can have a really long conversation about Crunch and this and video games and that, and then also turn around and fucking Burt Meg's name makes me laugh for 15 minutes, and you're like, this guy still gets it. Like, you know what I mean? And like, it is that switch of like how it used to be at IGN on Podcast Beyond, right? When I did lead the show, I led the show. I guess even I was going to say that compared to GameScoop, but comparing me when Dunham and Roper hosted Beyond to when I had to take over hosting Beyond, like those are different things. Like I'm not saying they're different characters, they're different aspects I get to play as, right? Even today, like I'm in a way better mood, I feel, and not a way better mood. I'm in a good mood, and I'm more prepared for PS I Love You, because I wasn't concerned about We Have Cool Friends.
Right.
Like, you're doing the lion's share today, so I get to come in here and be myself and just talk and hang out, like, and not have to worry about driving the show. When's the ad break? Oh my God, what about this? Did I say the Patreon names? Like, there's so many plates to spin to get a show going, let alone keep them going and then have different roles on every one of them.
No, definitely. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about my position, is that I've obviously, like, there are shows that I host and I can step in and host a lot of the stuff on Kind of Funny. But when I don't have to do that, it is so fun just to sit back, watch you guys work, and just be a part of it. Because there's zero pressure when I do something like Internet Explorers, or in review, I think I have to do a lot for that. But even that, it's still Tim's bag.
Kind of, you know what I mean? That's the thing where I
get to do the synopsis stuff for that, and that's so fun for me.
You and I have such a different role you and I have a very similar role on In Review, depending on which franchise we're doing. Yeah. As the one you're recapping, and you and I recap very differently, it is that idea of like, cool, this is my job. It's back to why I love the work so much, is that right now, while we're here, once Kevin says it's go time until you say sign off, this is what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And before this, it was me playing Deliver Us the Moon to be on top of that, talking to Jen about something. Oh my God, The Last of Us got, like, you're multitasking, and that always leads to feeling like I'm not doing it all well. And it's the same way of hosting a show, where it is like, you come in and you have an idea for how you want to start, but something went wrong. Like when I did We Have Cool Friends 2 weeks ago with Jen, and we had a false start in the beginning and everything else. And it was like, fuck, I was pissed off, and I had to shake it off, and I had to get back to the show. But that still is on you. It still hangs on you, right, as you do the fucking show.
Sorry, I'm taking one note for later.
I don't mind.
So here's the thing. Well, I think we've covered everything I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
But I do, because it's your birthday, I put in a call. Now I know that the entire world is currently quarantined,
of course,
and air travel very difficult to do right now, especially between here and other countries. But I was able to get you a special guest in. He's right outside. He wanted to ask you a few questions.
Okay, sure.
Let me go see if he's here. Hold on a sec. Real quick.
Sorry.
Just hold on one second. Do you want to come in now? Jack, here.
Oh my God. Oh Lord Almighty. It's Johnny Ace, everybody. It's gonna be Johnny Ace.
Greg, we're gonna interview Greg. We talked about it. Greg Miller. What do you mean you've never heard of Greg Miller? You know Greg Miller. You talked to him a bunch of times.
He's got to be screaming in there for you to even be able to barely hear that he's talking shit about me.
Okay, fine. Yeah, you can come in. Cool. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, no, I'll What's up, G-Reg?
Ace man, what's up? What's happening?
How you doing?
Man, all the way in from Malta, huh?
All the way in from Malta, just here. I'm risking life and limb to come in and ask you a few questions for a new segment that we're going to start here, and it's up to you if you want to continue it. And we have cool friends.
Sure.
It's called Between Two Aces. Kevin, please roll the clip. Whenever you want, Kevin. Roll the clip. I can't tell.
Don't worry, he's doing his thing. Maybe.
Between Two Aces. First question, Greg. You used to work at IGN. Do you miss writing good articles now that the only thing you write that's good are tweets about Nick?
Well, Johnny, that's a great question. Do I like writing tweets about Nick a lot. I don't miss writing like I thought it would. If this is a serious question, I'm not sure what Between Two Aces is supposed to be like.
It's anything we want to make it, buddy. I'm from Malta.
Okay. I don't miss writing it like I thought I would or when I was concerned of. And I guess that's, because I slowly transitioned while I was still at IGN even off of that into just hosting or whatever. So I still find the creativity in tweeting about Nick. But yeah, like I don't miss writing like you might think, John L.A. Esquire. Now, is that a root beer or a Diet Coke?
That's a Diet. That's a Coke Zero right now, but we got a lot of work to do today. Someone's got to cut KFAF. I was asked to be on PS I Love You. Oh yeah, we don't have editors. You talk about growth. One of these days we'll get a real editor in, then I don't have to do shit. That'll be great.
Now I asked Nick to be on PS I Love You for Predator, not Johnny Ace.
Oh, Johnny Ace is going to show up instead.
Oh, okay, sure.
Sorry. Now next question. You say you never compare yourself to others, but Easy Allies only has 238,000 subscribers, where right now Kind of Funny Games has 246,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel great?
What a fucking victory for us. I want to shout out to the Twitch chat who pointed out that Between Two Aces graphic is Easy Allies Studio. That is awesome. I did not notice that was, and I looked at it, I'm like, fuck, that is the Easy Allies Studio. Good job, Johnny. Nah, it feels great. You know what I mean? Good. I've been seeing it for a long time. Brandon Jones is going to wash out of the industry any day now. So pretty soon.
I can't wait. Next question. After the failure of Greg's Gazette, did you ever contemplate just going into hiding and never coming out?
No, I didn't fail. I mean, I was almost expelled for it, but I was like a folk hero to the audience. My fifth grade audience. Look at this.
What is your wife?
Pie guy sent over a cookie.
No.
Allie sent over a cookie cake.
She made you a giant cookie.
Wait, she made me a giant cookie,
Yeah.
like she makes her cookies.
Yeah.
Ooh, Johnny, you should tell Nick to come over and get a piece of this later.
Nick's definitely gonna do that later because he's got to go to the studio and cut some checks for rent.
Oh, good.
Next question. Does it scare you that Blessing is better than you at everything?
No, I love that. That's one of the coolest things about this is like bringing Blessing in, realizing where he's at on his journey, and then thinking about where he'll be in I'm 13 years now in the industry, like where he'll be in 13 years. Like that kid's gonna tear this place apart. He's gonna be able to do anything he wants. You know what I mean? And I think it's always interesting when. Obviously, we're the Kind of Funny community. We have Kind of Funny best friends. Don't get me wrong, but when I do see somebody who wants to be not, I don't want to say when there's criticism lobbed his way, you know what I mean, and it is that thing. Then somebody comes in and they want to be more trolly about it, and it's like, man, go back and listen to a Greg Miller podcast in 2007, 2008. Man, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know what I mean? And I don't get me wrong. Blessing is not that. Blessing is so far from where I am. He's in the middle. I'd say he's right behind me, right, in terms of what he's doing and his talents for it. So to think about how doing 2 shows a day for the next 13 years is going to make him so much better, to give him
forged out of iron,
right? Yeah, like it's going to be ridiculous. And like that's the exciting part of it. It's crazy to be here and have it actually happening. Where Nick and I, not you, of course, Johnny, but Nick and I have talked, and Tim and I talked. You know what I mean? When we were on this of like. That dream of getting the bigger studio, that dream of bringing in the next generation, that dream of bringing in the people who will do the Xbox podcast and will do the PC podcast. And that's been talked for so long. And then to actually be here now and have, split hosting duties on Games Daily with Blessing. And I was originally concerned, like not of his caliber of doing it, but would the audience be receptive to that? Is there going to be the thing that it used to be on Colin and Greg Live when me or Colin would miss it? And it would be like, oh man, I like Nick and I like Tim, but like I want Colin or Greg, blah, 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 and like not seeing that at all, showing up in the Games Daily comments and not having it be like, oh man, Blessing again, wow, out. Like, it's awesome that they get it and that we hired him to be the games person. He is the games person, and everybody seems down with it.
Well, that also speaks to you and Tim's ability to recognize talent, because obviously, early on you guys brought me aboard, and then you kind of set the tone for.
I don't think we've ever actually hired you. For anything.
I was asked.
You did debatable one time when Jared twisted his knee and died.
I thought I hosted that show. Did I not host that show for a while?
You did, but I just don't think it was a full. I don't think we paid you.
Is your biggest fear that Tim will one day be taller than you?
No, I don't. I don't fear. I've never been afraid of Tim, and I refuse to ever be afraid of Tim. All right.
Next question. Do you think Andy has more feelings other than sleepy?
Hungry and horny, right? Like, he talks about both those a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He always talks about his mouth salivating too when he starts talking about Cheetos. You ever notice that?
It's creepy. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something that, as a person who's a personal friend of Nick, who we can all agree is the creepiest on the channel, Andy's getting there. Andy's creeping up there.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
The fact that he has an emote called Too Horny.
It's weird.
Like, why does he
we gotta
get
get that kid a girlfriend or something, or maybe like a real doll.
I mean, you got him that peep. I don't want to know what's been going on with it.
I did give him that peep, and let me tell you, it started out pink, now it's purple. I don't know how that happened. Two questions left. Question number 5. Which reality show do you think Cool G would want to be in least? A, The Bachelor. B, Too Hot to Handle. C, Tiger King.
Too Hot to Handle.
Okay.
I think he'd dig the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
The Bachelor, he'd be hanging out in the mansion having a good time. But like, when I think of Cool Greg, I think of multiple layers and a hat and a hoodie and all this stuff. Like, on Too Hot to Handle, you just have to be in boy shorts the whole time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if that's his scene. And also, I don't know if he'd get along with those people. They're not tagging. He's on an island for a month. He can only work out and then try not to fuck.
It's one of those things where I've walked around San Francisco now for the past 16 hours after my flight got in.
Sure.
And I'm seeing a lot of tagging happening, but it's what I would assume Cool G would refer to as bitch ass tagging.
Sure.
It's basically just vinyl stickers that people are putting up on all the plywood that's gone up on the windows of the shops. Have you seen these? The honey bear and the rat. And finally, a real tagger has come and tagged both of them and called them bitch asses, which I think is good.
Yeah,
because I feel like if you're going to tag, like really tag. Not that I'm telling people.
You know what I mean? Make some art if you're going to do it.
Make something permanent that costs money for people to take off. Final question, Greg. When Joey inevitably becomes CEO, do you think she'll let Nick keep his job?
Yeah, with a drastic pay cut. I mean, Joey's going to clean it up when she gets here. You know what I mean? That's the biggest problem about it.
He usually have a hard bargain, but he'll take it. He'll take that.
That's how it's got to be.
Greg, as you know, if you want to be a part of this show, you can go over to patreon.com/kindafunny and back us at the $5 above tier and be part of what we affectionately refer to as the friend zone.
The friend zone.
A lot of people wrote in today, of course, with a lot of well wishes for happy birthday for you. But we have a bunch of these to get through. So do you normally do all of these, or do you just do a smattering?
No, I hop around and see what I'm feeling.
Copy that. Lexi Gunner says, "Hey, Greg, happy birthday. Have you successfully tried or failed at making any new recipes while at home?"
Oh man, so like while we've been here under quarantine or whatever, it's Jen. Jen's been killing it over there. She cooks all the time. It's that thing where I don't think it's in the way video games are like my release, like my way to get my mind off of things. I think for her it's cooking, where like in the middle of the day when she has a down moment, she'll start thinking about what she wants to make that night, and she wants to try new recipes, and she's been trying to support every local business here, so getting fresh fish delivered and getting fresh meat from a new butcher and all this different stuff. Like, she's on another level for cooking, so I feel like the most deadbeat chef dad around here, where I'm just like, all right, cool, I'll make wings, I'll make ribs. I'm sticking to all my traditional stuff. So I have not branched out into anything new. I guess I've been trying to do more one pan things, where like we had a whole bunch of eggs and ham around here this past week. So like, putting the ham in there, toasting that, then using the ham's juices to lubricate the pan, then put the eggs in there, scramble there, put some, onions in there, put some chives, you know what I mean? Put some cheeses in there, stuff like that. I'm trying to get on the beginner's level of what Jen does, because what my wife, Greg Miller, I need a recipe, I need a cookbook, I need a plan, I go out and get all the things, I assemble it. Jen's thing is to open the refrigerator, look at it, and go, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, blah, blah, and then just go and make all this stuff where that's not how my mind thinks. So I'm trying to get more like that.
Salty Spaghetti writes in and says, "Hi, Greg. First off, happy birthday."
Thank you.
And then says, "I was wondering, what would you say is the biggest struggle and the biggest success since Kind of Funny was started? Hope you're all having a good day and staying safe in these weird times."
Biggest struggle and biggest success, right? Struggle wise, I would think it's hard to say right now because we're in the eye of the storm, but I would think it's this, where this is obviously on another level from all of the, whether it be fights or any of the drama we've ever had before in the Kind of Funny community, which we've had. To be here now and have it be this different beast of everything we know has changed. The way we work has changed. The way I think in the old days, fuck me, literally a month and a half ago, when you'd be at the office, you could see if somebody was stressed out. You could see if somebody was overworked. You could see if you could help in a situation or, dial something back to make it not so stressful. Not having eyes on people that way, you know what I mean? Not having actually talked to Cool Greg outside of a Slack message in a month and a half now, getting to see Barrett only during I guess now it's changed with post shows, but not see Barrett as much as I want to. That's a huge struggle for us right now. And I think we're awesome and so talented that the team has been able to make sure the shows haven't missed a beat, that the content is better, is as good as it always is, right? That we're open, as honest, and informed on everything. That's all great. But it is that thing of, even right now, this show involves me, Johnny. I think Nick's over there getting another CD for you.
He's ordering lunch.
Kevin, right? So he's ordering lunch. So there's 3 of us right now of the 9 people that work on Kind of Funny. And it's not that I want eyes on them because are they doing their work? They're doing their fucking work. I want eyes on them to have a conversation with them. I want eyes on them because my situation of living with Jen and Lucy and having people to go on walks with and shoot the shit about and be in the same room and obviously, with my wife, hold hands with or whatever, is drastically different than fucking Blessing, who we just hired and moved here away from everybody and everything he knows, who now lives in a fucking spare room that Kevin's sister has. You know what I mean? Even Andy and Barrett, they're in a house together, Joey, Cool Greg, everybody, trying to keep eyes on everybody and make sure everybody's okay is so difficult. And that's the biggest struggle I have right now. It's especially for me, being the mom of the organization, if anything, right? Like I sometimes I'm cool dad, but I think overall I'm more the kind-hearted, I want to take care of everybody, what's going on.
Tim is for sure dad. I wouldn't say cool dad, but Tim's like, when you'd have those arguments with your mom where you're like, you wait till your father gets home.
Yeah.
That's Tim. You're definitely the mom who's disciplined when she has to, but for the most part, she's the one taking the kids out to Disneyland and buying them all sorts of shit.
Sure, yeah.
And then I would say that
your Uncle Nick,
uncle,
your Uncle Johnny, or whatever.
Yeah.
Put it in whatever.
Comes and goes with the wind. Cool, rides a motor.
I'm gonna go for a pack of cigarettes. Gone for 2 months. Greatest success. I'm sorry, real quick to get off it is the fact that we're still here. You know what I mean? We just had 5 years. That I think that we continue to grow. We continue to grow smartly. We continue to deliver on the message. The community continues to be the Kind of Funny best friends. And that is a message that still resonates with some people and doesn't resonate with the people. And the people it doesn't resonate with, cool. I get it. And I'm glad they're not here forcing it and faking it and being assholes. I'm glad we have a community of whatever we have. It's so hard to enumerate, right? But whether it be you're on the Reddit, whether you're listening to this podcast, whether you're a viewer on YouTube, that you're here to hang out with people and hang out with like-minded people and to see the Reddit where people are like, oh man, I want to play Predator, but I don't have any friends. And over the weekend, I bring people together and they all play all weekend and they all have a great time. That's what it's all about. The fact that this works is the biggest success.
This feels like a fairly good place to wrap it up, but I do have one more question from the audience. Spragu asks what I think everyone else is really wondering, and I would be remiss if I didn't touch upon the subject before I let you go, Greg. He says, Greg, why is KFAF the best show on the internet? #Greg sucks.
I think KFAF is the best show on the internet because it is, again, a testament to how far we've come in the fact that, we can look at each other and motivate and push each other to do different creative things that I know both Nick and Andy had to be dragged to KFAF like a horse to water by Tim. And to get them out there and doing that and creating something and making something remarkably different than what we normally do, right? Where I think everything else is, for the most part, a podcast. This is something we produce and push for and edit and put time into in a way that, sure, I put time into PS I Love You by building a document and playing games and thinking up and going through questions and working with Bless. This is a different thing of actually producing a YouTube video and bits and skits and all these different things. And I think that's what makes it so special. That's why it's one of my favorite shows on Kind of Funny, is that it really does speak to what we can do and how not every show needs to look the exact same.
Greg?
Yes.
We've come to the end of it. It's been an amazing pleasure getting to talk to you and not screwing with each other constantly for an hour and a half.
Sure. But Al Tribesman we're screwing with for an hour.
Oh, Al Tribesman's dead as fucking doornails, man. That
Yeah.
kid is. He's got a reckoning coming to him
Bury him.
on Tuesday. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear more deep dives like this, we do this show each and every week. We've had a great string of people since quarantine started. If you guys want to go back and listen to some of the back interviews, but we have Lucy James coming up Thursday, May 7th. So that's going to be
not
fun.
on our normal Monday. I forget what happened. That
we have a bunch of crap happening that week. So guys, make sure you're paying attention to the schedule. That's I believe on kindoffunny.com. You can go and see the schedule of what's happening week to week, unless we haven't been able to update that because our web designer is in, I think, one of the Slavic countries. We're not quite sure.
Of course, if you subscribe on Patreon, Joey sends out a thing every week saying what's up. And then
That's
also people just post it to the subreddit, so you can get it there.
Perfection.
Give us a buck. What are you missing?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna pay? $1. You're probably paying $17 to $18 more per meal for Postmates to bring you your Taco Bell right now. So of course, if you don't have any bucks to give, that's no big deal. If you guys want to support the show, if you've just come to this because you've always wondered what makes Greg Miller's mind tick, and you're like, hey, these guys all have all sorts of other cool stuff. You can subscribe. Please subscribe to our channel here at youtube.com/kindoffunny and leave a comment in the comments below talking about your favorite Kind of Funny moment to date. If you're just tuning in, this probably is it. This interview is all of your context for Kind of Funny. You're like, who's the guy in the headband? What happened to the other good-looking guy in the beard? Did the room outside of that eat him? Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure. I will see you, or actually, I'll go get Nick. He'll see you in a couple hours for PS I Love You. But until then, stay friendly.